Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of the Adventures of a Real Estate Investor. I'm Susie.
And I'm Michael, and we're excited you joined us for this adventure.
So today, our very special guest is Gino Barbaro. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Well, you guys have a much smoother delivery than me and my wife. Have you been doing this for like years or something? It's like you nailed it on the first try. Great job. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm excited. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. No, I mean, there was a lot of practice between the two of us, but yeah, thanks. But just to let our listeners know, so we actually met Gino through a mutual friend, Aaron Hale. He introduced us to Gino. We had the pleasure of being on his podcast that is with his wife, which is a fabulous podcast. It's all about really like couples, how they come together with, business life, right? It doesn't necessarily have to be real estate investing, but that was a lot of fun. So thank you again for joining us.
Thank you for having me on. I appreciate it.
Yeah, Gino, would you mind sharing with the Adventurous family a little bit more about your background and why you started investing in real estate?
30 seconds. That's all I'm going to give you. It's got 6 kids.
Okay, ready? I'm going to
ages 22 to 7. We have the 6 kids. We homeschooled them and moved out of New York 4 years ago, owned a restaurant eons ago. I left the restaurant back in 2016 to go into real estate full time. I partnered with my partner, Jake Gino, and we have another partner, Mike. Our first 1,000 units we bought ourselves, refied and rolled. We've done 3 syndications since then. We've sold 2 of the syndications. And I just love what I do. I finally found my sole purpose. As Santiago did in The Alchemist, the book we were just talking about, I find out what my personal legend is. It took several years to find that out, but I think that's what we're all here. That's why we are on this planet, to find out what our personal legend is, to figure out what we want to do. And multifamily is an amazing vehicle to hitch along with your personal legend, because it has allowed me to leave New York. It's allowed me to create the Jake and Gino community. You talk about impact. Our students have closed over 22,000 units, over $1 billion in assets. I started that venture out for myself. It was selfish in the beginning because I needed a job. I just quit the restaurant. I'm like, what do I do now, Jake? You're doing the real estate. I need a job here. I come down to Florida. I love the beach, but I can't be with my 6 kids at the beach every day. That gets played out after a while. So I said, let's start Jake and Gino. Let's start a podcast. Let's write a book. And we started doing that. And what I saw was part of my personal legend and part of my sole purpose, I think, was to help others, because I went through life coaching. I loved it. And then I think the other part of my personal legend, my sole purpose, is to really work with my family. I had worked in the restaurant business with my dad since I was 7 years old. He passed away when I was 37. So for 30 years, I had worked with him in the kitchen. I enjoyed it. I loved it. I could count on him. He could count on me. He was an old Italian guy, so he actually drove me nuts. But that's okay. I got used to it, right? And when he passed away, it was like a void in my heart or whatever. Am I building his dream? And then I realized, I think I like building businesses where they feel family-like, where we can touch on this a little bit, but where we have core values, where I know all of my employees right now and I can impact them. I want to bring them the vehicle of multifamily. I want them at Jake and Gino to go through our core values and to help our students. And I want to be able to impact their lives. And how do you do it when you have a company of 300 or 400 people? I don't think I want that. As I grow, I still want to be in touch with all of my employees. I still want to do weekly calls and all that. But I think that's what my personal legend is. So when everyone gets into multifamily, start thinking about that. Why multifamily, and how are you going to attack it? What is your portfolio going to look like?
Man, that's just incredible.
It is. And something I want to just ask if there's a parallel, because I know you're really big on family, which I totally love. I've heard a lot of great things about your program, specifically that like couples can join together.
Mm-hmm.
Did that come from like wanting to like have families in businesses and keep them together? How did that play out? Because a lot of, I guess, masterminds or groups, it's like, nope, one is one and that is all. And I've found that very like heartbreaking, because we all talk about, if your spouse isn't into it, it makes it more of a hobby than a like lifestyle and a career, which it does, because right, it separates you. So how did you decide to do that? Was there a parallel?
Very simple. I don't need the Jake and Gino education to help my living. I make more than enough through the properties. I mean, we own 1,000 units ourselves, so that money's all coming to me, Jake, and my partner. So I did the education as a spinoff. And if you two are going to join, and you have a partner that wants to join with you, we charge the same amount. I mean, partners are together, so it doesn't have to be husband and wife. We've got people on that are, husband, wife, and then they've got another partner. There's 3 of them. The more the merrier. We're here to serve people. We're here to help people out. And, the thing is, we have the event in October, the 23rd and 24th. I want spouses to come together because my wife, as you know, on the podcast, she doesn't know what a cap rate is. She could care less what a cash on cash return is, but I need her support. I'm here because of her and she's there because of me. So it's not a hobby. So when I'm doing deals, and it took us 18 months to get that first deal, me and Jake, 18 months of heartache. I'm going through that by myself. She sees I'm struggling. If she's not part of that journey, I may get there-itis and make a stupid mistake and buy a deal that I shouldn't. But if she's there supporting me and she sees what struggles I'm going through, it's a lot easier. So when we sign students up, I want the spouses to be part of it. I want them to be part of the coaching calls. We have those on-site boot camps where, we're having one this weekend. I'm flying to Omaha, Nebraska with the team. One of our coaches, we're doing a money mixer, a retreat. We're getting on a bus, about 50 students going to see properties. We're going to be there. I want the spouses together to see because, listen, when you guys are away in a weekend, so Michael, you may go to a property tour. Your wife may be at home. She thinks you're all out having fun, hanging out at the bars, seeing all these pictures. But there's a lot of work involved in that. There's a lot of stress. I mean, you're doing something new for the first time. You're out of your comfort zone. If you bring your significant other, let them be part of that journey. They may not care less about real estate. My wife doesn't, but she's able to network with the women of Wheelbarrow Profits. She has weekly calls with these women who are in the group, and that's part of it. And it's not what you say; it's how you make them feel. And if you feel like part of a community, if you feel like you're engaged, if you feel like you're part of it, your actions are going to speak that way. But if you feel like, I'm not part of this group, and what am I getting out of it? Why join that group? There's no energy. There's no accountability. So I say the more the merrier. I think spouses should work together. Even if they don't like it, at least find out what's going on. We have Toastmasters tonight at 8:00, the Jake and Gino community. There's about 20 of us from there because I wanted to learn how to public speak. A student came to me and said, hey, can I do this for this? I said, sure. Started up. My wife is on it as well. 6 months ago, she started on with me. So she's on. So there are elements that you can fit your significant other, your spouse, a partner in your journey. They may not like real estate, but hey, they may like calling investors up. They may like putting your PowerPoints together. Whatever that looks like, you can share. And I think the more you share, that's what being married is all about. You're sharing your life, and people are saying, well, split it up. I'm about family and I'm about business. The kids are a part of the business. The kids are part of the family. We talk, we pray, we eat, and that's what it's all about for us. So I'd like to share the wealth in the Jake and Gino community. And ultimately, that's what my message is. It's about family. If we can really uplift the family and uphold the family, we'll solve all the problems we have in this world.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more on that. And I just want to point out one thing. It's like, what's helped Susie and I, like, because we both got interested together on this, and like, we have our why set, right? Like, and we have our direction. That's like our guiding light, if you will. And because we both understand the power of real estate investing, and we both share the exact same why, and everything is intertwined, then we just do this, all the time, right? Like, people say like, oh, you get burnt out or things like that. But like, when you're so aligned with what you're doing, you don't get burned out because we are on the same path together. And it's just incredible to be able to share this journey with your significant other. It's incredible.
Michael, I would challenge everybody. We did a show with Dr. Gary Chapman a couple months ago on the Multifamily Zone podcast.
Oh, cool.
If you never read the book, 5 Love Languages, listen, I just read it about a year ago. I wish I'd read it 30 years ago. Yeah. And it really comes down to communication with your spouse. When I first got married, August 30th, 1998, that was the day my wife became financially free. She hasn't cared about money since then. So if I'm out there telling her I'm going to this real estate thing because I want to become financially free, she's like, what does that mean? I don't care about money. I don't worry about money. But when I said to her, hey, Jewel, how about I can make enough money to be able to fly our family down on vacations, to be able to be more charitable. That charity down in Honduras that we're working with, that orphanage, I can donate money monthly there. I can do scholarships to the Jake and Gino community. You have to paint a picture to your significant other of why you're doing this. If it's not really, ultimately, it is about money, but it's not about money. For me, it was the ability to say, hey, you know what? Braces, $5,000, check, not a problem. Car breaking down, $1,000, vacation, whatever. That's, for me, was more about the time freedom than just earning the money and what the money can do for you. So explain that to your significant other. Once I painted that picture to her, she's like, oh, that makes total sense. That's what it takes in the 5 love languages, and all, Chapman's written a lot of books with a lot of different authors. Amazing, the relationship books that you can have. And if you can speak your spouse's love language, that will really help you communicate. And, it took me a long time to figure that out, but at least I got there, right?
Yeah. No, and like even what's great about that is like, yes, like you learn like your spouse's love language and how to communicate, but like
Mhm.
you can also take that into your business, like with your
Yes.
business partners. Like it doesn't have to be like a love intimate
Hmm.
relationship. It's also just figuring out like the closest people around you, what their love
Hmm.
language and their communication style is. Because it's going
Hmm.
to be the same, right? Like I love words of affirmation. I love them from everyone.
Yes.
I don't just love
Yes.
them from Michael.
Yes. And that's a great point. Well, Dr. Paul White wrote the book, The Five Languages of Appreciation in the Workplace. We did a podcast with him also. So it's on the
Oh,
Jake Gino
cool.
channel for Multifamily Zone. And it really, when you mirror it, it's amazing. I keep saying to my wife, family and business are so similar. You need to have structure. You need to have boundaries. You need to have core values. You need to focus on both of them to make them to grow. And they're amazing. I mean, like the way you speak to your partners, the way you speak to your employees, that's the way you should be communicating with your significant others, your spouse and your children. Have that kind of respect. And Dr. Paul White mirrors those five love languages. He just puts them in the context of, acts of service. Maybe, hey, for an employee, if they're packing books, you pack books for them. They like that act of service. Or going to the post office, it's that employee may like that, where another one likes words of affirmation. Susie, great job on the podcast. You did an amazing job. That's a word of affirmation where you're being specific and you're telling that person. So everyone has them. You just have to figure out what yours is, but yours is not what the other person is. You have to really dive deep and see where like all of a sudden their energy comes from when you do something. And it's not really that hard because most of us are always thinking about what we want, but just do what Dr. Stephen Covey says. He says, seek first to understand, then to be understood. If you can do that, you will win the game of life. People will be attracted to you. You won't even have to say anything. They'll just want to talk to you. They'll tell you everything that they need to know. And all you need to do is be there is to listen. That's all you need to do.
How do you think a lot of people like get to that? Like if people aren't used to that, like if they weren't used to it growing up, if their parents didn't exhibit that, like what does that mindset shift look like?
Pain.
Oh, okay.
You need to
Yeah.
go through some pain, right? I mean, for me, the death of my father and the Great Recession changed a lot. I read a book by T. Harv Eker, The Secrets of the Millionaire Mind, and I got mad at that book. I got mad at him specifically because like he doesn't know me. How does he know my situation? And in the book, it's all about responsibility. It's all about your fruits or your roots. The decisions you make have led to you where you are. Unless you come to that conclusion, I was blaming Obama. I was blaming McCain. I was blaming the economy. But then I looked around and I said, there are people out there that are making millions of dollars. How are they doing it? And that moment, I think, in life just changed everything for me because then all of a sudden I started to seek solutions. I didn't see problems. So my next step was to get education, to get coaching, to get mentorship on real estate. Took another year. Then I met Jake. Jake came into my life. All of a sudden, we started talking multifamily. If I hadn't gone through that pain, I wouldn't have had that relationship, that experience. Another year and a half goes by. He finally moves to Knoxville. Then another year, we find our first deal. It really comes down to, I read Stephen Covey's book back in 2009, 2010. I was like, I don't know what this guy's talking about. He's crazy, 7 Habits. But after you have a little bit of enlightenment and you're going through it, it's like, wow, what a shift. And I think if anybody wants personal development, just Google life coaching and take some life coaching. I mean, that will give you clarity. We don't lack motivation in life. We lack clarity. Fear, a confused mind or afraid mind always says no. And that's the first step that goes on. If you can get some clarity in your life, you guys have your why. I mean, so if you guys don't get a deal today or tomorrow, or next week or next month, you're not going to stop. You're not going to quit. Most people don't have enough clarity in what they're trying to achieve, what you're trying to accomplish. And that's where you get stuck. You're like, what's my next step? You really need clarity in your life and working on yourself personally. Like I said, we can talk cap rates and anybody can learn those numbers, but if they don't come into the context of your life and how they fit your life and how they fit your personal legend and your personal goals and what you're trying to aspire to, it's really meaningless.
Yeah, and I think even with clarity comes a lot of confidence, right? I think we've like looked at confidence incorrectly majority of our lives. Like when you think about it, it's like, oh, even with extroverts and introverts, which I don't believe in those words anymore, but a lot of people still do. Like an extrovert seems confident, and it's like, no, an extrovert can just talk out loud. Like that doesn't make you confident. It's your vision, I think, that truly makes you confident. Because once your vision drives you, it's no longer about you and it's about everything else. And it's really easy, or it's much easier to talk about passions and visions rather than this is me and I just want to do it that way. It's like, no, these are all the things I'm going to help and do. And this is why.
I agree.
Yeah, it's amazing. I mean, I don't know. I'm really blown away, even because even with confidence comes, like you said, the pain, because like being able to recognize that and move on. Because now that you say that, I've heard a lot of people blame it on Obama, and I never thought of it that way. I was just like, I don't know why. I don't know what to say.
I didn't mean to make it political. I just,
No.
that he was a president at that time.
Yeah,
and then
yeah.
2012 comes, he's president again. Then 2016, Trump comes, I can blame Trump. And now Biden comes, I can continue to blame.
Right.
And we're all in this situation. We're all in this economy. We're all in this inflation. You just need to educate yourself and see what's going on. I mean, that's the issue. I can't change those macro. What I can do is I can work with the system that we have and figure it out. And I think confident people, when you become more confident, you get older in life, I don't want to be right anymore. I don't care about being right or wrong. I'm going to speak a lot less, and I'm going to listen to people who are smarter than me. And I'm going to be logical, rational, open-minded. And I'm not going to use just emotions to guide myself. I need emotions to make myself get excited and to do it, but my emotions are not going to make my judgments. Or not, I'm not going to buy a deal because I think it's great and I love it. And no, I'm going to buy a deal because it makes sense. The median income is good. The market is great. It's a 1980s and more build. I like the cash on cash return. That's what I'm buying it on. Yeah. And obviously you need a little bit of emotion to get it. You sell with emotion, you close with logic, that kind of thing. You need to use all of those in your life. And I think people are confident as they get more confident and older, they shed the ego, because ego destroys everything.
Yes,
you start losing your ego. You don't want to be right anymore. I just want to do a good deal. The person selling me the deal is going to make money. I'm going to make money. And then hopefully one day when I sell the deal, I'll make money. And the person buying it from me is going to make money. And oh, by the way, everybody in real estate makes money. The broker, the cost segregation, the insurance, the property managers, everybody's eating at the table, which is a great business to be in.
Absolutely. Yeah, I totally agree with that. And Gino, one thing I want to point out is, and I think, I see this often in a lot of successful real estate investors. And that is like when we get to a challenge or a point where we hit a roadblock, right? Whether that's the recession or you have like a really challenging repositioning that you're going through, right? Like whatever it is, you get to that roadblock. Mm-hmm. Successful real estate investors, what I've noticed is they're able to pivot instead of panicking, right? And they're able to find a way through that roadblock, either through it, over it, or around it, right? Mm-hmm. And that's what sets us, successful real estate investors apart from everybody else. And I don't know if that's, just a character trait of real estate investors or a character trait of really successful entrepreneurs. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I do notice that quite often in this community, and it's just fantastic to see.
Do you mind if I share a quick story about exactly what you're talking about? So it's March of 2020. We all know what happens in March of 2020.
Yeah.
We are on our quarterly planning with our coaching staff, and my partner, Jake. You need partnerships. Partnerships is what's going to hold you accountable. It's going to pull you through. We're on that, and we say to him, please don't mention anything about COVID. We're doing our quarterly planning. We want to set our priorities up. So the first thing the coach talks about is, oh, COVID, Grant Cardone's cutting half his staff, and this is going on. And we're like, time out. Nothing's even happened yet. How are we even pivoting our plan? We're trying to set our priorities. So as leaders, what we need to do is need to stay positive, and we need to stay focused. We didn't know what was going on. We actually got through the quarterly planning. We actually set the planning up. We got our priorities. We ended up firing them because of that, because that was on the agenda. We specifically told them not to do that. And you can't overreact. And I think everyone who jumps the gun, and we talk about this, we created the 100-year mindset. We have the 100-year real estate investor. It really comes down to long-term goals. We had Dr. Peter Lindemann in our podcast. He talks about investing in decades. Like, you don't look at a deal for a year or two. Look at it through a year lens of 10 years. 2 years are great. 2 years are crappy, and 6 years are so-so. That's how you're investing in real estate. If you're looking at it for the next 2 years, 3 years, that part of the cycle is gone. I mean, we're seeing probably stagflation, deflation, whatever you want to call pricing, everything's going crazy right now. So you need to look for that long term. And I think also successful people all plan for the long term. They're not buying something for a year and worrying about it into another shiny object. We've been doing multifamily for over 10 years. We haven't pivoted to self-storage or to mobile home parks because the yields are better. We just didn't do that. We're going to be patient. We're going to be confident that deals are going to come back. And in the meantime, there's other things that we can do. We can continue to write books. We can continue to have events. We can continue to build up our investor database while we're building relationship with brokers. And I think most people get skittish and go, well, there's no deals right now. That's not the only thing that there is in multifamily. There's other aspects of the business that you can be working on.
No, it's true, because that could happen in any part of real estate. Like everything has its ebbs and flows. So if you're going to look at it that way, then you will actually never be fulfilled, right? Because it's like achievement versus fulfillment. And if
Yep.
you just keep looking for something to fill your cup, but you don't end up achieving anything, so then what actually happens? You're just in this like hamster wheel of, I guess, unfulfillment.
Mhm. And that's what happens with a lot of real estate agents. I am shocked at the amount of real estate agents that do deals, and they do a transaction, then they do another transaction, and they're just constantly doing these transactions where just take a little bit of that money out and invest it into a deal. I mean, that's where I think they could really, you're selling a deal, take a little piece of that commission and put it into a deal. Have that, that transaction mindset is tough. The W-2 mindset. I know we get on that hamster wheel, and it's so gratifying. And it's that instant gratification where I'm trying to teach my kids, no, let's delay it. It may take you 18 months to refi a deal and pull it out, but let me tell you, it's so worth doing that. And that's a very difficult thing for, society nowadays to do, because everything is so instantaneous. I mean, you get stuff delivered next day, you get takeout, Uber Eats, it's very easy. So stuff that comes a little bit harder is more difficult to do. But I will promise you, if you get away from the shiny object syndrome and you plan for the long term, you're going to be much more fulfilled, and you're going to be, obviously much wealthier in the long run.
I have a quick question. Sorry.
you're fine.
So you talked about, instant gratification, especially with the next generation that's coming up, right? And you have children in this generation. And with that instant gratification and everything like that, like that's kind of ingrained in them. That's expected. Like, Susie and I's generation, maybe it wasn't like that. We didn't have next day delivery and stuff like that. And now that's coming into our lives now. Like, so, but now the new generation, your children, like it's so ingrained in them. How do you teach them like to wait for that delayed gratification? Because it's going to be so much more powerful, rewarding. Yeah.
So number one, you need to be the role model. So we don't live our lives that way. I have no credit card debt. If I'm going to buy a couch, I'm going to make sure that the couch is paid for before I put on a credit card. I don't go on a vacation if I can't afford it. So I am the role model. As far as my children, I let them invest in our deals. So my son is 16 years old. He's got $5,000 in the bank. And he says to me, Dad, this amp, like $2,000. I want to buy this. I'm like, Mike, you're 16 years old. I am not letting you spend 40% of your net worth into an amplifier that you don't need. But if you want to, you can invest in our deal. I can put all $5,000 into our deal. So that's hard for a 16-year-old, because savings, when you're young, it's savings is like a punishment. You're taking money away from kid. It's going to this imaginary land, right? It's very, very difficult. You just tell your children to save, take a little bit of it, let them put it away, but let them enjoy part of that, right? So I think having that balance between saving their money, but letting them also spend it and empowering them to let them spend it to wherever. I let my son invest in the deal. He's 16 years old. 18 months later, my son is asking me about owner draws. He's asking me about occupancy.
That's so cool.
He's asking me about creative financing because he wants to invest in his next deal. And oh, by the way, we've already refied $30,000 and given back his $5,000. So he's got 35 now. So that's 2 years later. So now all of a sudden his mindset is, you know what? Instant gratification isn't so great. I'm investing in dad's deals. He's in our second deal where we're going to refi this week. He's going to pull money out of that deal and he's going to put it in his checking account. So he's probably going to have $50,000 in his checking account and he's looking to invest that money in the next deal. So that's how you change it. You need to be the steward of your children. You need to teach your children that. And if you can't do that, start doing that, because that's what's going to lead to wealth. But it's very hard for a young adult to do that because we've never been taught that. You hit a button, it's instant pay everywhere. I love cash because I would always be able to touch it. I'd be able to put money in a box and I know what I'd be able to spend at the end of the week. Start a budget with your children. You know, when we came down here to Florida 4 years ago, I remember we have 6 kids. So our food bill can be between $3,000 and $4,000 a month.
Wow.
So, easily. Cause we're just we're organic. We breakfast, lunch, and dinner. We cook, so we're at home over here and we have Publix right across the street. And I had seen the bills were starting to go like over $4,000 a month. I'm like, dude, I said, Mike, let's set a budget. Let's put a budget together and see what all our grocery bills are. So I remember I set it to $3,500 and I remember it was September. And he looks at the thing and every dollar pops up and goes, you've exceeded your budget. And it was like September 22nd. And I hear him in the background, Dad, our budget's over. And I hear my wife saying, stop it, it's not. And I'm like, see, that's how you do it. You let them see what's going on in life and you let them be part of it. bring them to the grocery store with $100 in cash and let them walk around and see what that buys. Because right now, when you're using credit, it doesn't input into there because they don't see it. It's fake. But if you give them $100, I remember as a little kid worrying about running out of money in grocery stores, or even going out to dinner with my friends and not having enough cash on me. So I couldn't buy the dessert. That's the problem. Nowadays, it's so easy. Put some barriers up for them. Let them think about the value of money, price versus value, right? That's what we're trying to teach our children. It's not what something costs. It's what's the value that you can derive from it. And that's a great lesson. Involve them in your budget. Let them see where the money's going to, because all of a sudden you have Amazon, you have Disney, you have Ring, you have Spotify, you have all of these charges at the end of the month. It's like, no, $150 or $200. It's like, well, this is where the money is going to. Where can we cut out? Netflix. I killed Netflix. I'm like, dude, no Netflix. Get Netflix out of there, right? So all these things that you have to teach your children, they have to be part of the process, because when they become young adults, they don't know how to balance a checkbook. They don't know how to do a lot of these tasks because they're not taught in school. And these are basic foundational life skills that they need to learn.
Yeah, I can agree more. And that's really cool about your son investing in a deal. I mean, he's going to be like the most wealthiest, high net worth person in his high school class. You know? And they're like, oh yeah, well, your dad helped. You're like, no, I invested my own money. Thank you very much. Yeah, that's cool. And now he can buy 50 amplifiers if he wants.
But you know what's great about that though? We had a podcast with Sharon Lecter a couple of weeks ago, and she said something to me that really made a lot of sense. He's speaking the language of finance. He knows what owner financing is. He knows what an owner draw is. He knows what a physical and economic occupancy is. He knows what rental rates are. He knows what comps are. So he's speaking the financial language. And if you don't know how to speak the language, whether it's English or Italian, you can't communicate. So now he's got that barrier now to where he can communicate through finance. And that's really, really important. We want to teach our kids that language because that's an important language to start learning. If you don't know what an asset or a liability is, you're going to make a mistake when you're young, but he understands that language. And that's what we're trying to do is teach children that language, because that's an important language that we're not teaching right now.
Yeah, that's definitely not taught in public school, which is really unfortunate. It's the one language. Yeah, for sure. So Gino, before we move into the last segment of the show, I have a burning question that I've been wanting to ask from the very beginning, and that is, how are your opera lessons going?
Oh, they're actually, I got my thing right here. I got my opera right here. My book. We actually, you know what they did? They're killing me. They made me join choir too. I got to go to choir practice tonight. So I got choir on Wednesday, and then I got lessons on Friday. It's one of those things. I tell you a quick story. It's like everything else in life. You think singing is impossible. Then when you start doing it, it's not that bad, but there's so many things going on with breathing properly, your throat, thinking about it, projecting your voice. It's in Italian, so you got to slur the words properly. You have to read the music, and it's like anything else in life. It can be overwhelming, just like multifamily. If there's no framework to follow, you get overwhelmed and you don't do it right. I am fortunate that we have a teacher. He's been doing this for 40 years. He's a Russian guy. His name is George. Amazing. He's a bass. He's unbelievable. I mean, and what he's done in the last year for our children and for us, it's awesome. And it's a lot of fun for us because it's something we could all do together. And I'm competitive with the kids because I want to crush them when I want to sing. So for me going, right. I say it's people, systems, and culture. You surround yourself with the right people. My kids are totally about it. Systems, they're teaching us how to properly sing. So, singers like Adele and everyone, they lose their voice. They're not singing properly. That's the problem. They've never learned the proper technique. And culture, getting around the right. I mean, he's an amazing teacher. We're in choir, so we're going every Sunday. We're singing at mass on Sunday. We're practicing Wednesdays. And then obviously, whenever I get on podcasts, I sing a couple of tunes on podcasts. So, I mean, it's a lot of fun. It really is. And it's something that we do with the family. And I like it. I'm starting to enjoy it.
That's so cool.
That is cool. Thank you for sharing that, because that's awesome.
So now let's move into the final 4 questions that we have for all of our guests. And the first question, Gino, is, where is one place you wish to travel to and why?
I want to get back to Italy. I mean, my mom's got a house there. She just came back. I haven't been there since 2006. That's the last time. And, there was always, my mom's area had an earthquake back in 2009. I don't know if you remember the G7 in Aquila. It's about an hour out of Rome. So once that happened for a couple of years, just couldn't go back. There was just, everything was damaged there. And then, one thing led to another, getting 6 kids in a plane, not having enough money, that whole thing. And now we're going to push the button last year in April, and you saw what happened. So I'm just waiting for everything to get back. I love the country. It's just a beautiful place. We've got a house there. I love the history. I love the cathedrals.
Yeah.
I love everything about it. It's just an amazing place to go.
That's
No, it is
awesome.
absolutely. So the
Mm.
second question is, what is the number one thing on your bucket list and how are you leveraging real estate investing to achieve it?
It's crazy. I don't really have a bucket list. I live in St. Augustine, Florida. I live on vacation. It's just the most amazing place to live. The oldest city in the US. The beach is 300 feet away. I don't want for anything. It feels like I'm on vacation every day. I'd like to go back to New York this Thanksgiving, but as far as bucket lists, honestly, not really longing anything. I don't know if that's a good or bad answer. It's just that I don't know. I'm
No,
pretty
that's
fulfilled.
awesome.
Yeah, it's a great answer.
My coach was talking to me about that, like how I try to live my life without a bucket
Mhm.
list, right? And
Mhm.
that's the whole goal, right? I mean, leveraging real estate, or any kind of business or entrepreneurship where you have, passive cash flow coming in,
Mhm.
and you're able to do the things you want to do,
Yeah.
they never end up on a bucket list.
Mhm.
Yeah, which is
And it's crazy because when you're younger, you want the Ferrari, you want the whatever. As you get older, that's so not important anymore to me.
Right.
I could care less about that. That's not having a nice car is great. We bought a house downtown in St. Augustine for an office. I bought the house next door for my mother-in-law. I got a little cottage, but this, as you get older, those things become less important. And what becomes more important is you get really good at what you're doing and you just start helping others out and you start trying to build a legacy and leave a legacy for your kids. And you try to teach your kids those skills because you can pass money on to your kids and passing money on is great, but you want to pass the skills that you've learned throughout your life to them so they can utilize and leverage those skills to carve their way through life.
Exactly. Yeah, totally. So the third question is, what is one piece of advice for someone who wants to start passively investing in real estate?
Oh, there's a couple. I think the first thing, well, we've got a book here. I mean, just hit me up, Gino, jakeandgino.com. I'll send you this book PDF. This is a great book. One of our coaches wrote it. We launched it with him, Passive Investing Made Simple. I mean, 300 pages. What I would say is if you want to start investing passively, start looking up all the syndicators, start getting on their website, start opting into their list, start getting all of their emails and start reading about them. And if you're going to invest with somebody, know the person you're going to invest with them, know their core values, know what assets they're investing in. But more importantly, know what your goals are as a passive investor. Know what you want out of life. Do you want a long-term hold? Do you want to be invested in Louisville, Kentucky? Do you want to own assets that are older? Do you want a certain cash on cash return? Are you willing to defer that and capital gains and cash or capital appreciation on an asset? Figure out what you're looking for first, and then go out there and find the sponsor or sponsors who are offering that product to you, and then take it from there.
I love it.
Yeah, I do too. And actually somebody that we had on our podcast earlier suggested the same book. So that's awesome.
Excellent.
Yeah. So the fourth and final question is, if you had unlimited resources available to you, how would you leave an impact?
Unlimited. I feel as if I have pretty unlimited resources for what I need right now. So what I'm doing with Jake and Gino is at the event on October 23rd and 24th, we've invited our benefactor, Second Harvest Food Bank. They're going to have a booth there. They're a sponsor. They're going to be getting donations from all the attendees there. Half the swag that we sell, profits, I'm going to donate to them. I'm going to match that as well. I want to raise 1 million meals by the year 2030, but I think we're going to do that in the next 3 to 4 years. We're at almost 100,000 now. What I'm also doing is we've created something called the Personal Finance Academy through Jake and Gino's for young adults and 30-year-olds as well. I want to start giving away scholarships. The product is only $300, but there's a lot of people that are less fortunate out there that can't afford the $300. So let's say Susie and Michael come and say, we've got a nephew who wants to do that. You take the $300, I'll donate it directly to Second Harvest, and that young adult will get the scholarship. So it's a win-win. We are able to provide that scholarship. You guys are able to donate money to a charity because there's so many people out there that don't know how to give back. They don't have the time. They don't have the resources. They don't have the creativity to do that. Sometimes they're just like, what do I do? So how cool that would be to actually be able to teach somebody about personal finance and actually help Second Harvest, because they're one of the biggest food banks in East Tennessee. They do an amazing job. We were at their factory plant about a year ago packing food. They do an awesome job. It's an amazing organization. But between that and also those scholarships, I think we're just killing a couple birds. I mean, that education is great. And we're actually, because I say, if you give something away to somebody, they're not going to really appreciate it. But if you two have skin in the game where you're saying, I paid for this, this is what I put a lot of money towards this, they're going to take that education more seriously. So that's what we're working on right now.
No, I love it. Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing that.
Yeah. So before we end the show, Gino, would you mind telling our listeners, our adventurous family, a little bit more about, what Jake and Gino is, and then how they can find you and get a hold of you?
Just go to jakeandgino.com. We're, I guess, an education company. I'm trying to figure out the easiest way because everyone always asks me, "Hey, Gino, what do you do?" I'm like, I don't really know what I do. It's a hard thing to describe. We do podcasts. We've written books. We're an education company. What we're trying ultimately to do is we're trying to create multifamily entrepreneurs. That's our catalyzing statement. Multifamily is a business. It's an entrepreneurial venture. And most people who get into it are just thinking about buying one asset here, one asset there. They're not thinking about scaling up. They're not thinking about creating an amazing business that multifamily allows you to do. And how do I know? That's how we started out. We were like, oh, we want to do is get 100 units and get 10,000 a month in cash flow. There is so much more to this business than just that. You can really create impact. You can really create scale. But how do you do that? You need to think of it as a multifamily, as an entrepreneurial venture. And Jake and Gino's there. We teach the 3-step framework: buy right, manage right, and finance right. That's what real estate and multifamily is all about. You need to buy an asset right. You need to be able to manage it properly. And you need to know how to finance it. If you can put all 3 of those components together, you're going to have a successful investment.
I love it.
Yeah, I do too. That was like a mic drop. I really love that because education, like when you can serve beyond a traditional classroom, like you impact so many more people, you reach so many more people. So thank you so much for explaining it that way.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, Gino, thank you so much for joining us. It's really been a pleasure. I know our listeners will find so much value out of this. I mean, Michael and I already did. So thank you again for being here with us today.
You're welcome. It's my pleasure, guys. Thanks.
Awesome. So until next time, explore more, adventure awaits.
Woo!